Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is behind the steel curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you. Once again, it's Tuesday night. It's later than 9 o'clock than it should be. That happens sometimes. But we're here to talk some Pittsburgh Steelers. And with me, as always, my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
It's going okay tonight. I'd love to take a deep breath right now, mainly because it was a very nice day finally up here today.
Yeah, here too.
But as everybody sees, I'm not wearing my Steelers gear. Kyle had a baseball game tonight. He was the starting pitcher. They did not get to breathe in the sweet smell of victory. It was a good game, fairly close game, but they lost 10-6. So
yeah, and honestly, it wasn't you that held us up. It was me, because tonight was our first softball scrimmage.
And I'm going to go ahead and call somebody out right now.
Okay.
And he probably is aware I'm going to, because I'm there watching the game and I'm getting texts from Thaddeus Kennedy saying that he's like, "Oh, I'm probably gonna have to go to bed. I probably won't catch any of the show tonight, but I got a new Bluetooth radio in my truck, so I'll listen to it tomorrow."
So he's here for the beginning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I mean, we'll jump into the show here. This is, like I said, this is the family show on the BTSC network. There's a lot of different shows on the BTSC podcast network. I mean, we've got the YouTube shows. You've got a change coming up tomorrow night. If you weren't there last week to see the transition, where one Michael Beck is transitioning out of doing Know Your Enemy in the Curtain Call because of his new job with the Canadian Police. He's finishing up the police academy. He's just got a different schedule, and the podcasting, definitely the YouTube podcasting isn't working out, and he has to really has to make some tough decisions with everything that he can do with Behind the Steel Curtain, just because of being a different place in his life. But all our other shows, they're coming at you. Make sure you're checking everything out. I just have to say this because this is going to be your first time. This is my first podcast since I did the Breaking News podcast with Jeff on Saturday. It was another one of those miserable breaking news podcasts. The first time I did one, I was by myself when I did the breaking news podcast last fall with the passing of Tunch Ilkin. But Jeff and I did the breaking news podcast before we knew many details. We still don't know many details about the passing of Dwayne Haskins. We've got various different reports and different things going on. We're going to kind of talk about this tonight as we go, incorporate it into our topic, which is, leadership on the offensive side of the ball. But first things first, Rich, anything you just want to say in general about the situation with the passing of Dwayne Haskins? Anything else to say to Steelers Nation or at all there?
We really still don't have much of a clue in terms of what happened, right?
Well, there's various reports, and they're unconfirmed reports. And there was actually a report today by Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that said that the police report will probably not be available for 90 days.
That's typical. And
yes, so there's some reports. There's an unconfirmed report that he ran out of gas. Yes. There's an unconfirmed report that it was just somehow a disabled vehicle. There was even another report that was just this evening there was maybe even another passenger in the vehicle. I don't want to go and get into any of that at all. I have no idea if there's any validity behind that one. But go ahead.
Yours all sound a lot more reasonable than what I heard a fan of the other team at Kyle's game saying tonight, because I was like, no, I wanted to say something, but I just kept my mouth shut. So
yeah, there's just so
they
much.
Were saying, oh, he was out jogging.
No, he wasn't out jogging. I mean, that's not that's not
I've
the
not
reports.
Heard that anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that can't be true, but based on the unconfirmed reports, that does not appear to be the case. I want to talk. I wrote an article for Sunday about it was about I wanted to, first of all, I wanted to let everyone know how we were going to handle stuff moving forward at the website at Behind the Steel Curtain. When it came to Saturday, once the news broke, we only ran stuff dealing with news and information and reaction to the passing of Dwayne Haskins. We shelved the Saturday night open thread conversation because it just didn't seem appropriate to be, talking draft and free agency and all that in the wake of everything. We ran some things Sunday morning, and one of the things that I ran was I wanted everyone to know how we were going to move forward at Behind the Steel Curtain, and it's kind of how we've been moving forward with our podcast. Now, for those of you that listen to all our podcasts, you'd be like, oh man, everyone's talking about this. Well, that's because a lot of us, this is our first chance. I know Jeffrey Benedict. I listened to his cutting room floor talking about it. I know Jeremy and Andrew. I know and Brian's Bad Language podcast, and they talked about it on The Hangover. And that's just kind of how we're doing. But we're also, I don't want to call it business as usual. It's not, because the Pittsburgh Steelers, tell me if I'm off here, the Pittsburgh Steelers they've still got to prepare for the draft. Today they signed, JC Hassenauer was in to sign his exclusive rights free agent tender. There, I said it right. And you have to conduct business, but you can conduct business with a heavy heart. And that's kind of how I feel the Steelers are going to go forward. And that's kind of, where we're going here. Do you kind of agree with that one?
Yeah, you go back to business. I won't say business as usual because it's not business as usual. It's business in somberness.
Yes.
There is a somber mood, somber feeling, and I think that's kind of how things have been at the website and on the podcast.
Yeah. And I shared a little bit with what was going on in my family in the article, because my father-in-law passed away on Groundhog's Day. He was just shy of turning 77. It was unexpected. He didn't have any serious illness or anything, but as I said, in the article, he was a coal miner. So he had various ailments that he had dealt with for decades. But still, when he was gone, my wife wasn't ready for that. And it's taking a long time for her. My kids were sad, of course. I was sad, of course. But my wife was very close to her father. And that's something she's still struggles. And, there are many days where I still am there to be a shoulder to cry on. And you know what? It's not the same for everybody. And that's what we need to understand in Steelers Nation, and for Steelers fans and for the Steelers players, is it's not going to be the same for everybody. Their best bet is to get out there and start working hard again. Somebody else, it's going to be hard, maybe for, maybe one of those receivers know that they were the last one to catch, they caught the last pass that he threw in their workout. That might be a big step to catch that next pass and things of that nature. But the Steelers are back to volunteer workouts on Monday, so they can start getting back together as a team. And whether or not they are going to be at the facility or not it's going to be different for everybody. Yeah. So I did that article to just remind everyone that, hey, for you Steeler fans, that you're not ready to dive into Behind the Steel Curtain, the podcasts or the website or everything, that's fine. That's understandable. But when you are, we'll be there. And for those who are ready, we'll be there. One of the commenters, I wish I could remember who it was so I could call him by name, said about how him and his spouse both had deaths in the family during their marriage. It took his wife.
That. I don't remember who it was though.
Oh, it said it took his wife about 2 years to be ready to function again in the same manner. And he said it took him about 3 to 5 days, because no one handles everything the same. So, we're at least bringing this up and bringing it there. We mourn the loss, like Jeff said so much, and Brian said this. I never met Dwayne Haskins. I didn't even see him play. I'm trying. Were you at any of the preseason games last year? Did you go to the preseason game? That would have been against Detroit.
That was against Detroit.
Your wife and daughter went.
That's right, because I had something else that night.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes. So I didn't go. You didn't go. So there, I never saw him play in the Steelers uniform. So but yet being a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's still a part of that team. Brad,
perfect example, Brad. That's why I had to throw that up there.
Yeah.
Saying that he still thinks about Dennis Sheridan, was one of our family here, and was always here. And now that he's gone, we still feel that way. And we, never personally met Dennis, but just
he was a part of this family.
He was a part of this family in a way that's hard, not easy to describe, but there were a lot of us that really hit us hard when that was the case, because Dennis had just always been here. So people deal with these things, like you said, in different ways. I know here at the website we're working on, I want to say, trying to tastefully work our way back into normal.
Yes.
We're doing, kind of what we feel we can and what we feel is right.
Yeah.
To get stuff out there to those folks that are looking for stuff, while still keeping in mind that there are others who are going to deal with these kinds of things differently. So we're going. So
and like Steelers Chick 46 says everyone handles grief differently. Every day I think about my mom who passed away on Mother's Day 2021. Absolutely. And sometimes you probably think about your mom and laugh, and sometimes you think about your mom and cry. And you know what? All of that is okay. And it's really tough. I don't want to do another salary cap article. I'm not ready to do that right now. I did have somebody ask me, well, what's the Steelers salary cap right now? As well, especially after J.C. Hassenauer. Well, J.C. Hassenauer didn't land in the top 51 salaries. They're like, oh, so what did the Steelers have? I'm like, well, really, they're going to end up around being $14.9 million. Those that they have. Oh, well, weren't they just at yeah. But you also have to think about that, there's that kind of move. I'm not writing that article yet, just because I don't even want to, I'm just not ready.
Not time to be a numbers cruncher.
It's not time to be a numbers cruncher. And I know a lot of people, they were critical of the original tweet that came out because they felt it wasn't the time to say how Dwayne Haskins, the struggles that he had in Washington when you were the one breaking the news of his death. I don't think that was the intention. I think the intention was wanted to make sure everyone know who he was talking about. It probably could have been done better, but yeah, it's really difficult to navigate these, because my biggest concern is the Steelers players and those that were just close to him. And if you watched, did you see just a couple seconds of like Chase Claypool raw emotion reaction? Yep. I mean, that broke my heart. It did, because when I see him reacting like that, it breaks my heart, just like it breaks my heart when I see my wife cry missing her dad. It's just how things are right now. And it's not going to be easy for anyone. So, Claude Bishop did ask a question here that I want to bring up. Says, do you think the Steelers will wear number 3 on their helmet or jersey? I think they will do something.
Yeah,
they will do something. It's hard to say exactly.
The first thing, Claude, I can tell you is you will not see a Steeler during training camp or any point in time this year wearing a number 3.
Yeah.
That won't happen.
Yeah, I don't think
the organization will not let that happen. And then I would expect them to potentially do something. I'm thinking maybe a sticker on the back of the helmet or something would be the route they go, but that will be up to the organization to figure out.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. Michael O'Malley said, Haskins' death bit me hard. I was not rooting for him to start, but he's a human being, just plain and sad. Okay. And my thing is, people are like, well, oh, how does that affect the Steelers? And people are wanting to jump in and say, oh, now they have to draft. I'm like, no, I said, here was the thing about Dwayne Haskins. He had the big P word going into this season, and that was potential.
Yeah.
He had the potential to be the best quarterback on the Steelers roster. And he also had the potential to be in the exact same role he was last year.
Right.
But the thing is it was going to be exciting to see his opportunity coming back to him again. And that's what's so sad, is that he was going to get a chance to reset and restart his career. I mean, last year he was here, but Ben Roethlisberger was here. This was going to be the year, even if he didn't have the front line to the job, he was going to have that opportunity. And it's very sad.
He was looking forward to the opportunity.
Yeah. Yes, he really was. And then some people are like, well, why was he out there? Why did that happen? And things like that. I understand. We don't know the details.
We don't know.
But I'm going to say something else about this. Okay. We have all done something in our lives that after we did it, we could look back and say, wow, I shouldn't have done that. That could have gone very badly. And sometimes it does go badly for people, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I had one of those moments, and it did go badly and could have been even much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. And sometimes it's just little things. I remember in college, I had my 16-pound shot put in my dorm room, laying on the floor, throwing it up in the air, almost hitting the ceiling and catching it. How dumb was that? I'm throwing it over and over again. If I dropped that one time, it might have killed me, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so used to it. Again, of course, I was trying to impress a couple girls, but I married one of them, so I guess it worked out. But we've all done questionable things that you didn't realize that
it may have worked out, but let me make one thing perfectly clear.
Yeah.
She wasn't impressed.
Well, she probably wasn't. But I'm just saying, someone said, like, sometimes you don't realize that oh wow, that was not the right call until after the fact. And it's just so sad the time that when something like that happens in life that it costs someone their life. So it makes me sad, and people are like, oh well, he should have. A lot of people should have. Everyone should have at one point of their life.
Well,
so.
Because it made its rounds on stuff. I would go away from football to something. They had that big interstate pile up in the snow several weeks ago up on I-81 in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, I used to drive up that way to see you when you lived up there.
And, I knew exactly which stretch they were on. I knew exactly where this was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, at one point there was a video, and it was from inside a tractor trailer.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, there was one was done from a dash cam from a tractor trailer that was involved in the accident. And I'm telling you one thing, because I don't know if it was pointed out, because you had to really be watching. There were 3 people killed in that. And I watched this video, and I think I saw one of the guys be killed. And it's like, and there was another, the one main video they did that the guy, everything was having to be bleeped out, but he was actually considering running out to his car to get his stuff. Yeah. About that time, smash, more cars, and his car caught on fire. He'd have been killed if he went out there.
Yeah.
And for a split second, he thought, I can run out there real quick and get my stuff.
Yeah.
And then later he's saying, thank God I did not run out there and get my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been faced with those kind of things before. And so therefore I don't want to, people that want to say, oh, well, we should, you know what? We've all been there. I'm just sad that he's gone. I'm just so sad that he's gone. So, yeah. So before that, I said we'd circle back to this, and it was honoring Haskins this year. Part of that's going to come to, the Steelers in the front office and the coaching staff, and some of it's going to come with the leadership of the team, which is the topic of tonight's show. And I know we took a while to get here, but that's just because this was just one of these things that we wanted to discuss. But this brings it out even more. I was thinking about this when Ben Roethlisberger released a statement, and I'm like, that was someone that the team could have, leaned on especially those offensive players, those receivers and everything else when this went down. Before everything happened, the Steelers offense seemed to be kind of a squad in search of a leader.
Yeah.
They really were. And and now we have a tragedy, and you could really use a leader right now. And the Steelers are still trying to find that. And I just think it's a shame that they aren't able to do this. And this might actually force a leader in one way, or it could even suppress a leader somewhere else. But we already know that the defense has leaders on that team. Cam Hayward, he's the man now. He's the man. I mean, Trent Jordan, he's the man. He was a captain 2 years ago. Last year, they only had one defensive captain. It was Cam. They couldn't select TJ Watt for a captain. It was before he signed his contract. He hadn't played in the preseason. So that's just how it was. I would not be shocked if both of them are captains again this year. Minkah Fitzpatrick is a leader on that defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense are really in search of a leader. Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They are. Now, like you said, does this situation bring this
mm-hmm.
I don't want to say force, but it kind of is for it. Does someone use this opportunity because it impacted them in such a way that
mm-hmm.
they just
mm-hmm.
naturally slide into it? Maybe.
Yeah. To me, leaders emerge when they must. And it's I would not be shocked at all to see a leader emerge from the Pittsburgh Steelers offense from this tragic situation going on, just because that's how leader, you can't force a person to be a leader. You can't. And a lot of people are saying that some quarterbacks aren't that guy. Ben Roethlisberger, he really wasn't even that guy for a lot of his career.
Ben Roethlisberger was a guy I always felt who could be that guy, but this didn't necessarily want to be that guy.
Yeah.
He would defer.
Yeah.
And my thought was, for the longest time, he deferred to Pouncey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pouncey was the leader of that offense, because it was, when it came to leadership, that's kind of how that all fell together for the Steelers. He was that guy. Now the Steelers have people on the team that could be that leader on offense. This is what's a shame. It's the elephant in the room. We kind of have to say it. It seemed like Mitch Trubisky was stepping up to be that leader by having those players get together and work out and get to know each other, and inviting the other quarterbacks and the running backs. And, Kendrick Green was there to snap and that nature. Is this going to affect that? Do you think this could possibly affect his leadership role with the Steelers in a negative way?
Yeah, it could also impact it in a very positive way as well. But Mitch is a wild card in this one. This could really take a toll on him, or it could really, in the negative way, or it could very much do just the same in the positive way. He's the one I'm really going to be interested to see. Kind of how he comes through on all of this. Yeah.
And Jeff talked about this on his Let's Ride, and he's like, okay, what happened to Dwayne Haskins is Mitch Trubisky cannot blame himself for this. He cannot blame himself for this. This was not anything that was his doing. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that the thought of, if I just wouldn't have done this, things would be different. It's really got to be a horrible and delicate situation for him when it comes to that.
Right. It does.
Yeah.
That's why, like I said, that's why, to me, how this impacts him is probably a big, huge wild card, and really could play a big role in how the Steelers season goes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but if you look at it, I mean, the players that have been around the longest for the Steelers, I mean, the oldest player that played for the Steelers last year on offense was Mason Rudolph. I mean, you've got to look at it. Who's probably got the most playing time of anybody on that offense? I think it's got to be Chooks Okorafor.
Yeah.
But you generally, unless an offensive lineman is a big leader, you generally don't hear about them, about their leadership. And I don't know where Chooks falls with all that.
Chooks not a real vocal guy.
Yeah, I don't know that I could recognize his voice. Correct. in an audio lineup, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I don't think I could recognize his voice if you played me some sound bites. So it's not just about experience. I think some of the guys they brought in have some great potential for leadership in James Daniels, in Mason Cole, in Mitch Trubisky. I really think that they're good possibilities. What about the guys that were on the team? Do you think Najee Harris is ready to step up in that role as a leader? Do you think he could be one of those guys?
This is me just talking about what I've seen. Okay. So far, and just my feel of Najee. And Najee is, I don't know, he's like Ben. He maybe could be that guy, but I'm not sure he wants to be that guy.
Here's my fear.
Yeah.
I've been there before in life and various different things, and maybe you and other people have as well, is that there's something that you can do, but if you're forced to do it before you're ready for it, it could really affect you in the wrong way.
Yes, it could.
That's kind of like even just from a sports perspective. Let's say you were a high school athlete and something went on with the team, and you're pretty decent, but you need to grow a little bit. But next thing you know, you come in as a freshman and they really need help, and you're going to be on varsity. Even though you might even be better than some of the players up there, if you're not ready for it, it could actually really inhibit you with your growth. Now, other people, it could actually really help you grow more. But sometimes having to do something before you're ready, and I don't know if Najee Harris is ready to be the leader. I mean, I think he's ready to be the guy that the offense runs through.
Yes.
But does that mean that he's going to be the leader? Because you can be the guy and not be the leader.
Exactly. And that's a big thing. It's different about being the man when it comes, air quotes, the man when it comes to play on the field versus the leader, the person that is extremely comfortable talking about things, or being that face of the offense. Cameron Hayward is very comfortable. But Cameron Hayward didn't come into the league with that. But
no,
he has evolved.
Cameron Hayward wouldn't have been that way in his second season,
right?
No,
but Cameron Hayward has evolved into the face of that defense. The leader.
Now, here's a question.
Yeah, that's a question.
Do you think TJ Watt might have been ready for that in his second season?
No.
I mean, but he was closer than someone like Cam Hayward.
Cam Hayward was.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you right now, okay? Because I've got my little wild card going here on the offense. That this entire situation would not surprise me if I saw certain things both on the field and as a leader from a certain player.
Okay.
And I know different people are going to have their take, but I'm just throwing this out there. Okay. The player I think that we see the most from dealing with this and see them potentially A, improve their game, and B, start to be more of a vocal leader on that offense, is actually a second-year player.
Mm-hmm.
I could see an impact on Kendrick Green very much in this situation.
Yeah, he was the one lineman that was with him down there.
Yes.
You know?
Partly because he was the one lineman that was with him down there.
Mm-hmm.
The type of
there might have been another one, but I know he was for sure.
Emotional energy that he brings to things, to then have a teammate, pass away in these circumstances could potentially be very solidifying moment.
Yeah.
I don't want to say wake up call, but a very slap in the face, maybe, kind of thing to Kendrick Green. And I would not be surprised to see him come out of this whole thing as a more determined football player.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Part of the little bias to why you feel that he could step up is when you see that number 53 on him. Just, you know what I'm saying? Just because it's still sometimes to me, it feels
actually,
like.
No, that's
it is for me.
It has nothing to do with it. It is his.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, what takes me back
almost
to it
his nasty streak
is his reaction on draft night last year. Believe it or not, is what leads me to that, and him then just being so excited and wanting to be a Steeler lineman. And yes, he had his struggles last year, but I still think this could be one of the things where he is. He was already out there putting in more work this offseason and stuff like that to get better, and this could just be one more of those things to just push him.
Yeah. Well, like Tyler W. says, he says the captain is rarely the best player. It's the guy with the best leadership. Okay. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Okay. Right. Yeah. And then another one that someone brought up is that, and then they answered it. Someone else answered later in the live chat. They said, well, what about someone like Derek Watt? He's the special teams captain. Unless they utilize him more on offense, it's really hard to be an offensive captain.
Yeah.
I mean, he could still be that guy.
But he's still going to be
in the locker room. I think he can be
offensively a guy in the locker room, and he's going to be I could see him being a big part of, but he is not going to become, as I like to say, not just the leader, but also the face of.
Yeah.
But so, yeah. Yeah. I mean, some really good questions about all this. There's a lot of possibilities. The problem is you just look at how young that Steelers offense is. I mean, it really is. And what's crazy is there are a lot of possibilities of someone who could really emerge as the leader on that team. They really could. And it might, and here's what's crazy. It might not be who gets selected captain for this year. Because it might take the Steelers, might take that unit much longer to figure out longer than even what it takes by the time they, select their offensive captains. So, right. And I think someone said there earlier in the live chat, when I was talking Kendrick Green, they're saying, well, maybe some of this with him, but he may not even be the starter. I'm not saying that because all this Kendrick Green is necessarily going to be a starter on the offensive line this year. But that still doesn't mean that he can't become a leader and work his way back towards that.
Yeah.
And in a couple of years, we could be saying, look at the A, leader this guy's become, B, player this guy's become. And some of that, if something like that happened, you'd have to go back to this situation and look and say, wow, this shook something inside this guy and helped turn him into what he is. And that's what we're sitting here trying to guess. I'll just say it that way. Yes.
Yeah.
Are there guys that could happen to because of this? Or, who could we see?
And here's what's interesting. We're not in the locker room. We're not. We don't know how these players interact. This might not even be a question. They might already have a great idea who they're, that leader might have already emerged and we just haven't seen it yet. Or that leader might not emerge for until they really get going into the season. We We really don't know. So,
yeah, and it will become more difficult for us to see until at least training camp, I would imagine, because you're not going to see these guys out there and being asked questions, being in front of the camera, and being on the field. We're not going to see a whole lot of that until then.
Well, here's something else that we might not have thought of. Think of the last 2 seasons. And the difference with the coverage of the Steelers, of not having reporters in the locker room. Who do they get to talk to? Whoever the Steelers decide to put out there for them.
Yeah.
You know, I think if with reporters in the locker room, even last year, and you know, they should be back this year, that we could get a much better feel for that, simply because they'll be able to interact with more of the players, you know, and see how that really ends up. You think so?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, but again, we're going to have to, we can sit here and talk about what kind of impact this could have in terms of finding a leader of this offensive unit. And we can talk about it all we want and come up with our thoughts and ideas, but it's, like I said, it's going to be a while before we're actually going to know what's going on.
Yeah. Yep. So the last thing I want to see is the Dwayne Haskins tragedy take someone who could be a leader and kind of squash that for them. I'm hoping that, but at the same time, if it was someone who was really close to him, and because we don't know how certain players, you know, flock together and form different friendships as, you know, as teammates. We still don't know who may have been the closest with him and how that's ultimately going to affect things and could really change someone's season or even their ability to step up as a leader this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to roll into the final question? Give a little bit of time.
Let's go ahead.
So that way we're not rushing so much at the end.
Yeah.
And this is it. You guys kind of know the drill. I'm not going to preach to you this time about waiting. I'm not going to bring up your comment if you put it out there before I put the thing out there, so I won't even be looking. But do you want to roll with the question of the show?
No, you said.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm just saying.
Oh, yes. What I said to you before the show, I think.
What the title of the show?
Yes.
It asked when will. We're going to ask who. If you had one player on offense who you think will most likely emerge as the leader for the Steelers this year on offense, who would it be? Now, don't put it in the live chat yet because I'm not going to bring it up till after I type it in. I'm going to let you go ahead and answer. And we could be way off base with this. There's no right answer. Nope. But just who do you think is going to emerge?
You know what? I'm just going to straight up be honest with my first thought of back as this happened. And what I hope, based on the fact then that this happened, is that this just solidifies and Mitch Trubisky just becomes the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of took my answer. I was going to go with Mitch Trubisky.
Sorry, you gave it to me first, so I went ahead.
That's fine. I'm going to throw another name out there that I could see emerge as the season goes on, as he gets more familiar with the Steelers as well. And it's going to be another new guy. I'm going to go with James Daniels.
Yeah.
So
that was the other one I was considering.
So I just put it out there. I know everyone was waiting. Everyone was really good. Everyone was waiting. Didn't get any names out there before I put that out in the live chat. Everyone was waiting for who they think could emerge as the offensive leader. Remember, this is just for the offense. That's why I said it there. So we got Christopher 11. He says Mitch. Okay. Whoa, that jumped. Creakis says Mitch. And Steel Dog 88. He says Mason Rudolph. I could see that.
I could as well.
And it might not even be, it could be Mason wins the job and Mitch is more of the leader. It could be that Mitch wins the job and Mason is more of the leader.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not necessarily,
if
you're talking quarterbacks, not necessarily the starter.
Yeah. And Steelers Pittsburgh says Mason, prime example. How much when Ben Roethlisberger was young, don't you think Charlie Batch was probably more of that leader.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And he wasn't the starter. BF Bud, he says Mitch. Sean Manahan says Najee. I almost threw Najee out there as my other choice. It's just, being a young player, but man, he's got that Pro Bowl under his belt. I can see it. Steeler Chick 46 says Mitch. And we got Mr. Woodside, right? That's it, right?
Yep.
Said two great picks, gents, for the ones that we went with. George OTJ says Mitch. David Poe says Mitch. And of course, then Mr. Woodside, he says Mitch. Johnny Rocket says Mitch. And Demetrios says Mitch T. Kyle Johnson says Najee Harris. Tyler W says Muth, that he thinks could.
I don't want to say that I don't see it because I could.
Yeah.
Muth reminds me so much, like I could see him so much as the Heath Miller type.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what happens sometimes.
They just,
you see a player, they can remind you of someone else, and you think that means they'll be the same leader, and it doesn't necessarily mean that way. It could.
But it wouldn't surprise me.
But it would not shock me one bit. Tate Boyce, he
because
says,
of Muth's demeanor, both on and when I've heard him off the field, wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Tate Boyce says James Daniels got to make sure you're checking out his show that's Sundays on YouTube's the YouTubes. Did I just say that? You would want to watch that show on YouTube's? No, on YouTube. On the YouTube side, and of course, is in the audio.
Got to run down Sheets's.
Yeah, run down to Sheets.
Give me an MTO
for that's why I'm watching YouTube's. But no, there's his. We run the North show. Great stuff for us. Clarence Washington says Mason Cole. He's got some good leadership coming in onto that Steelers offensive line. Okay. KT the Hulk says Najee. That's not our KT. No, that can't be. Jerry Cherryband, he says Claypool. He was saying earlier, he thinks Claypool could step up in a big way this year. Right. Claypool would have to go a long way from what Steelers fans think of him, but we don't know exactly how people think of him.
But if you saw some of what Jerry was saying earlier, I understand why he made that pick, because he was asking some things about Claypool and what we thought, and what people thought could Jerry. I'm going to say this to the Jerry Cherry Band. If nothing else, don't be surprised if we see a very different type of Chase Claypool this year.
Yep.
Whether he's the leader or not, I don't know, but I won't be surprised if we see at least a slightly different type of Chase Claypool.
Yep. I could see that. Okay. Chris Rush says Mitch. Richard Adamson says James Daniels. Claude Bishop says Claypool will mature this season and be a captain by midseason. Well, I don't think he'll be a captain because they pick him at the beginning of the year. But if you mean leader, I see exactly what you're saying. BMK says Daniels. Mark Tobin says he gave two answers. It's cheating. He says Najee and Deontay.
But Rush. I mean, it's cheating.
Yeah, no, it's cheating for what we wanted, but
for what we asked.
It's better if they have more than one.
But correct. I won't be surprised if this is more than one guy as well.
Yeah. Yep. And Russell Schwartz says Mitch. Kyle Johnson says he could see Muth. Who is this? Shaner Mayhem, I guess. Sorry. Mitch, the chip on his shoulder, Trubisky. Let's see. Then people are just commenting a lot on various different things. I missed it. Sherry Richards says Kevin Dotson.
That's another one.
That one's interesting because he seems like there's so much to see from him, but yet when you see other coaches react to him, you've just got to wonder if there's more there that fans don't see. Maybe it's just them trying to drive him. I don't know. So, but we got some good answers. It seems like that the Steelers could have stuff. Russ says Mitch and Najee. We'll see how
Russ. That's a pairing I could very much see.
Yes,
someone like Mitch taking the 1A and Najee taking the 1B. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By that, Dave, you get an idea what I'm saying.
Yes. And remember, the leadership is important for them playing and on the field and success. You're like, well, the quarterback needs to be because he's the one commanding the huddle. We're talking about who's the guy rallying the troops in the locker room, who's the guy, like Mitch was doing, getting guys together outside of the facility and building relationships.
Who's the guy
So
when something happens? Like if you're a player and you have something off the field, I don't want to say go horribly wrong, but just something that you got to just be like, man, I got to talk to somebody about this. Who's the guy you're picking up and calling?
Yeah.
Who's the guy you're picking up and calling them on the phone and saying, I got to get this off my chest and here it is.
Yeah.
To me, it's that kind of guy.
Yeah, and I just want to throw this out here because to finish up here, because Jerry Cherry Band says, makes you realize how many leaders the Steelers have on defense. It kind of does. It kind of does. So through all this, hopefully that the Steelers can George OTJ says the QBs. I mean, sometimes that's just by the nature of the personality of playing the position. And sometimes it isn't. So there's a lot to figure out with this team. And unfortunately, with the tragedy from this past weekend, is that some of it's going to be forced on them a little bit sooner than, it might not. It will still probably evolve organically, but it's not going to be it's not going to be a slow natural process that it might have been otherwise. So
it was the process was thrown a curveball.
Yeah.
Now the question is, since I was watching baseball tonight,
they
were thrown a curveball. Now the question is, how does the team adjust?
Exactly. And like you said, we said at the beginning of the show, the Steelers, they still have business to conduct. It's not business as usual. It's business with a heavy heart. And as they go through these various things. And that's how we are kind of moving on here at Behind the Steel Curtain, is, still talking about the Steelers, everything, but just to realize that there's still going to be that hole in this team when something this tragic happens. So
and not just the hole in the team, it's the hole in the team and the impact that it has on the other players.
Yeah.
We were talking about how quickly, we were talking early on about, trying to do things so that folks, we understand folks all process and deal with these things on very different levels. Remember, we're dealing with that with the players as well. Some of them by next week are going to be like, okay, let's get into workouts, and others are going to still be feeling this weighing down on them.
And and some of them might, if it's their first time back at the facility, they might just need to be at the facility and take it slow and not get much of a workout in. It's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
But and we understand that it's different for fans, that some are affected more than others, and it's affected some of our staff much different than others. So, but we're still here. We're still bringing you the podcast. We're still bringing you the content at behindthesteelcurtain.com. But like we say, we also do it with a heavy heart. Rich, is there anything you want to say tonight to close up the show?
No, other than I'm still got my plans all set up for going to the draft day party up at Heinz Field on the 30th of April. We'll be there with one Thaddeus Kennedy, who was nice to see him in the live chat earlier. I know he has since ducked out and gone to bed, but it was good to see him here earlier. And if anybody else is going to be up that way, throw a shout out to us. Let us know you're going to be around. Thaddeus and I would probably love to meet up with anybody we could off of here. If anybody else is going to be up there for the event, looking forward to that. It really, the past couple of days, has taken a real pause. I was just starting to get excited for the draft coming up, and I really have kind of hit pause on that.
Yeah.
Right now. I mean, it's still coming, and if I don't pay attention, it's going to be on top of me before I know it. But I was really starting to get up and excited and more. Oh, draft, get close. And now it's just kind of, okay, how do I get myself back in that draft mood?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go about this the same way I always do. And, I'm one of those that I don't just go from switch on to switch off. I work my way through.
Yeah.
It progresses. I've picked and chosen carefully the things that I've read on the website the past couple days. But it's there.
Yeah.
And I'm working my way back into it. Still sorry, Andrew Wilbar. Still cannot bring myself to get into the mock drafts.
Yeah.
Typically, I will try to hop on a couple right at the very end and just to get an idea. But that may, even that might be difficult for me to get to this year because, with the mood that I'm in over everything that happened with Dwayne Haskins this weekend, do I really want to put myself through something that I typically hate to begin with?
Yeah.
I don't know. But the draft is coming. Can't wait.